Hello, welcome to episode 24. Excuse me for a second there. Froggy voice there. And this is episode 24 of the Apostate Alliance. We are joined today by an ex-Muslim, little devil, Sophia. And Faye is back with us. Welcome back, Faye. Glad to have you back. We always say that the Apostate Alliance is where you can be free to not believe, and you are once again joined by three non-believers today. You will be watching this as a recording tomorrow, and I want to assure my guests that even though it says live on the screen, it's not, because I listed it on YouTube, and it just says live because of how StreamYard is set up. And so, like I said, when you get to watch this, it'll be a recording. So I'm talking to you from the past. Like we do usually on every episode, we're going to talk about a few stories that I found on Twitter, and then we'll get Faye and Sophia will get into the interview. One thing I want to bring up that really doesn't have anything to do with ex-Muslims or apostates or anything like that, but there was a story I found on Twitter where in Great Britain, there was an elder couple whose child was murdered, and then they got a bill from the police for like £6,000. Like they're trying to make them pay for the investigation or something. I mean, there's a story that links to another website off of Twitter, and I just thought that was interesting. So I'm going to put it in the video description for you to check out yourself. But you're from Great Britain, Faye. Is that like a normal thing? Faye? Sophia, are you there? You're muted, Sophia.
I accidentally pressed the cam thing. Did anybody see anything?
No, it just was a flash. It wasn't. But when we're done here, I'll go back and look, and if your face was showing, I'll have Nakasuchi cut it out.
Okay.
But I think Faye froze up on us here. She froze up one time. We were in here. Here she's back. So let me bring her in. And now she's on the screen twice. Let me get rid of her frozen image. Oh, she already did it. All right.
I'm not sure what's happening with my internet. I might try to connect it. I might tether my phone to the call.
Yeah, I mean, not to worry. If it happens again, just pop up back in. And like I said, I had the same thing happen to me like 4 or 5 days ago. I was invited to a stream, and like every 5 minutes, I'd drop out of it. I'd have to go back in. I was like the running gag for the whole stream because I'd disappear and come back. But I had asked when you froze up there, I don't know how much you heard. I'd mentioned the story about a couple whose child was murdered, and an elderly couple. So presumably their daughter, was a grown adult and got murdered. And then the police in Britain were trying to charge them £6,000 for doing the murder investigation. I mean, is that something normal in Great Britain? Faye? So, all right. We'll see if she comes back. But at any rate, I wasn't going to go on. Oh, here she is. Were you able to hear me when you were doing that?
Yeah, I know what story vaguely you're talking about. I don't really have much of a comment on it. As I was talking about before we went, before we started recording, I haven't been paying attention to politics or anything that's going on in the world for a while because I just do not understand what's happening, and I have no desire to know.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I just brought this one up. We're going to put it in the video description and let people, go look at that themselves. I just thought it was odd. I mean, I really didn't have a chance to research too much about it. There's another tweet that I saw here from, I believe, a friend of yours, Faye, Mariam Namazi. And she tweeted out about it says, the hashtag Abadan girl, Bahar, who went to a rapist home, and she had gone to a rapist home to confront him. She's now in custody facing charges of religiously illicit sex, and the rapist is free. And there's a video attached here that you can look at. So we got a little feedback there. That's all that was. All right. And there's a video here where the police go to arrest her, and they've got their feet on her chest and, smacking her around and stuff. And this is something I already know from talking to you and other ex-Muslims that happens all the time, that men are able to rape Muslim women or ex-Muslim women in some countries and not have anything done to them about it. But now here they are, they're arresting the actual woman that got raped. Is that something that happens quite a bit in these Muslim countries, Faye?
I'm not entirely clear on how they justify that by law. There have been stories about how women will talk about how they were raped by somebody, and then they will be accused of adultery and then punished for that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy to me that they're still so far behind in that they would convict a woman who's just told them that something horrible has happened to her. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just gross.
Well, right, and they said the charge was for religiously illicit sex. I mean, so that would probably fall under like what you're saying, adultery or something like that they're prosecuting her for, which is just crazy. Sophia, do you have any comment on that?
About the woman being prosecuted for being raped?
Right, yeah, she was raped, and now they're charging her with religiously illicit sex.
Yeah, that's. I agree with Faye. It's like it's a common thing in, I guess, these type of areas where adultery is punishable by the government. So instead of holding people, like religious people especially, accountable for their own actions, they will just put it on the victim and blame them. So, yeah.
I mean, so this is episode number 24. I mean, Faye and myself and other guests have talked about similar issues so many times. I mean, I don't want to ever become, talk about it so much that it's just like normal. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about these things so much, and that it keeps going on. It re-disturbs me every time we see a story like this. The other one the other thing that I had earmarked from Twitter, again, is not really anything religious, but I just found it interesting. This woman had posted a picture of her newborn, and she was breastfeeding the child, and it wasn't anything untoward. It's a picture of her laying in the bed, and her child is laying next to her and suckling her breast, and she has her t-shirt up, but all you can see is like the side of her breast, and just one of them, and it was a very beautiful picture. I mean, of a mother and her newborn child, and somebody had retweeted that picture, and this gentleman said, I would never let my wife post something like this to the internet. What happened to men today? Have they given up on leading their wives in a holy direction? The side of your breast is unnecessary to expose to advocate for motherly love and breastfeeding. Keep it classy, all in caps.
that it's unnecessary for him to show his face anywhere, but he still manages it. So I'm like, it's more up to you.
Yep. Yeah, that's from here in the U.S. I'm assuming he's like a fundamentalist Christian.
I don't like. Here's the thing. I don't want to go on this long parade about Americans, but like your stereotype is that freedom this and freedom that, right? Like it's freedom. Like we're free to have guns. We're free to not have pay for healthcare. We're free to do whatever the hell we want, despite how much detriment it might cause. With that in mind, I don't understand how easily it is for Americans who like took this freedom call to just fall in line with religion, like it's the least free thing in the world.
Absolutely.
Like it's crazy to me. Like here we have things that maybe could be more free, like free speech in the UK is still a bit iffy. Certainly freer than most places, but it's not free to the extent that it is free in America. But for the most part, we're not that crazy Christian, not free at all. You know, the fact that this man is saying, what's happened to men? Why can't we keep our women in line? It's like...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he says that he would not let his wife do that. Like...
Could I comment on this?
Oh, yeah, please do.
So I feel like this concept of men thinking that other men should be responsible for their women, it actually ties into honor culture a lot. And this is exactly like, the kind of stuff that happens in the Middle East and, countries like Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They have the same mindset, and they think of these people as backward. They think of them as being so far behind when they don't even take a look in the mirror and look at themselves as how similar they are to the same mentality of like how they want to control their women. And they judge other men for not being able to fulfill this, And
not only is he like doing this thing where he's like, men control your women, he's also trying to indirectly control this woman when this woman has nothing to do with him. Like nobody asked him to look at that. Nobody asked him to see that. He could have just muted the post and just walked away. But instead, he had to really go out here and share his opinion on another woman posting a picture of herself.
Exactly.
Yeah, and trying to shame her about it. And trying to shame her about doing one of the most natural things, in humanity. And again, it's not some like exploitive picture or anything like that. It's a lovely moment between a mother and her newborn, and then he had to turn it into something untoward.
I genuinely think that his sort of righteous fury was because he was turned on by that picture and it weirded him out. I kind of feel the same way when people call me out for pictures that I post. And it's just like, well, you're disgusted by the fact that you want me and therefore you have to explain why I have to cover myself because I'm so hideous. And I think it's similar for a lot of women who just express themselves, It's really... Because the thing is, if you passed by a photo and it meant absolutely nothing to you, you wouldn't take the time to post about it or say anything about it. This form of like publicly shaming a woman who is just taking a picture with her child. I don't get why he needed to say that if it wasn't for more so himself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. He was disturbed by that picture because he didn't like the way it made him feel. He saw the side of a woman's breast and it made him feel some kind of way that to him, it made him feel like he was going against his religious beliefs. And that's just insane. Like,
and it only starts off with these pictures. Like first it starts with who let her take a picture like that? Who let her post that? Then it extends to, well, who let her go out like that? Who let her work in an environment with other men? Who let her, speak up for herself? Who basically just limiting all the rights that women have fought so hard to even get in the first place. Like it just starts with these little things and it just blows up into those.
Yeah, I mean, I've told people in this country, you think it can't happen here, but there's really fundamentalist Christian sects that would love to have, a ethno, or not an ethno state, a theocracy. And there's, people that we have argued against recently on YouTube, that this one ridiculous person called Mr. Batman just went on for 10 or 15 minutes of stream, less than a week ago, talking about how it should be okay to murder gay people. And he's a Christian here in the United States, not talking about a fundamentalist Muslim. So anyway, yeah, that's all I got for news stories this week. And as I say, I will post all those in the video description. You go check them out yourself. But we're going to move on now to Sophia's interview. She is an exMuslim, and she is someone who I just met recently through Faye's crowd, I guess I'll call it. Matter of fact, most of the exMuslims that I know now, I know because of Faye, and people like Saf and Farah, but mostly Faye. Faye's my doorway to the exMuslims, I guess. But so I'm going to let you. What's that?
The community. I am the gateway drug into the community, is what I think.
Right? Yeah. And I need my fix. No, so Faye and Sophia are going to talk, and I'm going to actually step backstage for a little while and just let them have a chat. If you've seen this show before, you know what's going to happen, and I will be back later.
So Sophia, I don't really know what to ask you, because I feel like I know you. Like, we're not the closest of friends, but we're friends. Yeah. It's been a while since I've spoken to you sort of one-on-one. We've been texting a little bit recently, but before that, it kind of felt quiet. So I just want to ask you how you're doing. Like, you are in a COVID hotspot, from what I remember. So how are you doing? How is the global situation right now treating you?
I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard in the beginning, like when the pandemic hit, especially for me, because I was going through a crisis for myself. But obviously recently, a couple months ago, I've been in a shelter. I came out. I am in a new location, have my own place kind of, and I'm working, trying to go back to school. I am taking classes online for another program, and just staying busy, focusing on myself, on my goals. And for now, I think it's kind of easing up a little bit. Like, there's more jobs available lately. Before, it was really hard to find a job, but it's getting easier now. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people approach me and say, like, Faye, you've had such a hard life. But honestly, Sophia, you've had such a hard life. Like, especially throughout 2020 and like earlier in 2019. Obviously, not everybody knows about all of that, and you don't feel like you have to share any of it if you don't want to. But things have been difficult for you, and like, I respect the fact that you still have so much positivity about you, and you're still working to, go back into education, get your job, have your bag, get your apartment, just live your life. Like, I really do admire that passion that you have.
Thank you.
And I'm really, really happy to hear that, you're still going. And even though I think both of us have our dips, it's good to see you be able to stand on your 2 feet and, acknowledge the fact that you've done something. You've moved with your life, no matter how small, no matter how big. You've made your moves and you've stood your ground. And I'm honestly quite happy about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make it awkward.
No, it's good. Yeah, I think it has been a really tough year. Generally, it's been probably the hardest year of my life. But after everything has passed and being where I am now, I do feel like it's kind of like it was meant to be that way. I feel like it kind of led me to a different direction, and it's like this is where I was meant to be. This is where I'm supposed to be headed. I've gotten like experience and like personal insight into circumstances that I probably never thought I would ever be in, but now I do, and I can empathize more with people who've been in those circumstances, and it gave me like motivation sort of to understand what it is that I want to do. So my main like pursuit now and my main goal is to be a social worker. I want to be out there and help people the same way I have been helped when I needed it. So it helped me really figure out like what my life goal is, and like now I want to work towards that.
And that is a very, admirable route to take. It's not easy being in a government job like that. So, mad respect to you. I'm really, really happy to hear that you're doing okay, even though things have been a little up and down in 2020 for everybody, but also, for you. And yeah, it's just like, especially since when we first started talking, like where you were and how things were, like you've come such an incredibly long way given where you were. And like I just like, don't get me wrong, I'm in an emotional place right now. I've been going up and down with my own depression thing, so I'm going to be very mushy throughout this entire interview. If at any point it gets too much, just tell me to stop, and I will do my best. But
it's okay.
From where you were and from how things were for you, like I am so proud of how far you've come. Like, yes, there have been low times. Yes, things have been difficult. Yes, things have, it's felt like you've gone forward so much, but at the same time, you're always taking 2 steps back. Like it like I can see it, because I kind of, even though I haven't been actively like in person involved with it, I've seen it, through private DMs and through things that you've said publicly. And I'm so happy you've come such a long way, and I hope you know that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear you say that, because obviously, like, you're probably the first people who really helped me, get out of the situation. You were there when I really needed it, and I feel like you and I have like so much in common with the kind of background we had, the type of religion we grew up in, like the version of Islam we grew up in. I feel like it's very similar, and you just understand a lot more than most people would from this community. So I'm really like fortunate and happy to have someone like you to look up to, and like, see you as an inspiration, because that's really what helped me get through it too. And the fact that you're happy for me makes me really happy.
I think that camaraderie is really, really important, and it is something that I want to get to later down the line in this interview, mainly because I've been talking about it a lot, and it's not really been helping me stay out of trouble. But it is something that I want to discuss with you, because I think that, first of all, I want your insight, because I think that your opinion is really, really important in all of this. And the second thing is that it's something that I truly miss, because like for both myself and for you, like we don't have our families anymore. And even though our families were awful in a lot of ways, there was still family. There was still something that you could fall back on, maybe not so much for us, but the ideal is that family is something that you can fall back on. So I think that for us, it's so important to be able to have this sort of social system that not necessarily protects us, but we can run to whenever we have a problem, and we can just be honest with ourselves. And it is something that I've found is extremely difficult. But again, we'll get to that later. First and foremost, I feel like I've interviewed you so many times. Like, is that just me?
Yeah, I've been on your show, like, I think 2 times on your channel.
Yeah, no, like at this point, you're just a part of the furniture on my channel. But it's saying that also, when are you starting your own channel? Like, you're waiting.
I don't know when or if or how. I actually don't know how to even like do it if I wanted to. Like, what the whole.
I'm not even saying it has to be like an exMuslim channel, right? Like, I'm just saying you are. Okay, this is just gonna be like me praising you interview. It's not much of an interview. This is how I'm feeling right now. But like, you are such a vibrant person. For someone who grew up so sheltered, you have like all of these opinions. You have such a big personality. At least when we're talking, like, you're so vocal about things that you care about. Like, I'm just sitting here like, where's Sophia? I see like lines on Twitter every now and then. And obviously, like, social media is not for everybody. It's extremely taxing. So it's not something that I'm going to pressure you to do, but it is something that I see potential in for you, because you have, you're vibrant and you can just become like a vlogger who's like, I live most of my life sheltered and I want to do stuff that I've never done before. And here's a record of, because that's kind of what I do. But I've interviewed you quite a few times, and like, I know the tip to tail of your story more or less, partly because there's a part of it that I'm a part of, but also because I've interviewed you so many times. So, like, what's the lowdown? What happened to you? Like, let's go through all the miserable, then we can get into the interview.
Okay.
So what happened to you? Like, how did you grow up? What happened over the last few years? Where have you been? Give us all the details.
Okay. So I think I'm also be repeating some stuff because I've been on like your channel and I've been on Abdul Samir's and I've kind of said the same stuff. So it's going to be kind of similar, but just like, I'll keep it brief. I grew up in a strict Muslim household. We were Pakistani Pashtuns. So there's also the Pashtun cultural element that kind of played a role, and also Islamic values. So I grew up, childhood-wise, there's a lot of stuff that I wasn't really sure was going to happen to me until it happened to me later. So like, as a child, I was kind of blind to it, though it was probably still going on. I wasn't really aware. And then later on, towards like when I was about 11 years old or so, I had to be homeschooled. That was the beginning of the end of my life, sort of. Basically, my life changed that way when I became homeschooled. I wasn't allowed to go out anymore. I wasn't allowed to see my friends anymore. The only time I ever left the house was very rare. It was only when I really needed to go somewhere, and usually it was mostly like a family trip. Like, everybody went, like my mom, my sister, and me. All of us would go at the same time, usually to like the store or something. And it would happen like 4 times a year, I'd say. Very rare. And that too, we had to be covered. We had to wear, the whole thing, the jilbab, the niqab, and all that. And we had to be accompanied by a mahram. So basically, my brother or my father. When I was being homeschooled, I also started attending Islamic classes. I went there for about 6-7 years. So I learned a lot about Islam. As I was learning, I became more religious. And throughout my life, being, stuck at home, I kind of became aware of certain things happening in the house that I wasn't aware of before. I started noticing certain things more. I started noticing, the abusive patterns in my family, the way my mom was being treated, and how much she was actually suffering that I wasn't even aware of before. And she went through a lot, and I kind of had to become her backbone. I had to be her support, but she didn't have anybody, And by doing that, I also kind of started becoming more religious because I started turning to religion as like a comforting thing, like a coping mechanism. I tried using religion to help my mom. So like taking out like beautiful hadiths, beautiful stories, beautiful things I learned that would help her and comfort her. Things like, for your patience, you're going to get rewarded and everything's going to turn out fine and God's going to, reward you and he loves you. He'll only test those who he loves and all these things, right? So these kind of stuff that make you feel better about what you're going through, even though what you're going through sucks, it's like a Band-Aid, it's not really helping you, but it's going to help cover it up. So things like this continued. I was learning more about Islam and I was stuck at home. Little by little, I started wearing more layers of clothing. So it started off with the hijab when I was like 9 years old, and then it progressed to jilbab, which is like a burqa, big old like loose outer covering that you wear on top of your clothes, the black coverings. You wear that on top of your clothes. And then when I was about 16, I started wearing the niqab. and I stuck with that for most of my life until I left Islam. So yeah, I just been really like hidden. I never really been visible, I feel like, in public. I just always been, hidden in the house, and even if I left the house, I wasn't really being seen. So that's kind of how my life was. And slowly, like little by little, I just started noticing how depressing that life was. Like, I was never allowed to get a proper education. I was not encouraged to go to college. I was not allowed to go to work at all. I wasn't allowed to have a job. And I was expected to get married. That was the only expectation that they really had on me was, your end goal is to get married and have kids, and, you have to be married by this certain age. If you wait too long, your expiration date will come up and you're not going to be desirable anymore. Nobody's going to want you. So you should get married at a certain age so that, you have more potential. And the more, like, when I hit like 17, 18, that's kind of when this pressure really, really hit, like the marriage pressure. Like, I've constantly been
I don't know if I've cut out or if you've cut out. John, are you there?
Yeah, she froze up.
Okay.
But yeah, she can just come right back in and we can pick up. Since we got a minute here, while she's rebooting, who she reminds me a lot of? Sophia reminds me a lot of Eve the Apple, because Eve was quite nervous and everything. But she's so effervescent, like Eve. Like, once you get her talking and get her in it, very, very well spoken, very effervescent, and I love listening to her. And I think she's a lot. What's that? I didn't catch what you said,
She
Faye.
needs to start like a podcast. Did you hear it that time? I said she needs to start a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, because she is not giving herself enough credit, I don't think. Like, she would be marvelous at that.
Maybe I'll start a podcast with her. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh, are you back?
Hello?
Yes, hello. We can hear you.
Hi.
Can you see us waving? I don't think she's hearing us.
I can hear you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. Did you guys hear anything I said?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, well, you dropped out right about where you were talking about when you had turned 17 or 18 and how the pressure of getting married, and then you cut out us at that point.
Okay. I can pick it up from there. So, but yeah, the pressure of getting married was hitting me, and it was around like that time when I was really considering if I even wanted to be married because of all the abusive patterns in my family. I started thinking, like, wait a minute, if I get married, will I get abused too? And will like nobody help me? Because the thing with my mom's situation when she was getting abused was that no matter how much I tried getting help for it, nobody was helping, like one of my uncles said that it was his right, my father's right to beat him, and that's like, Islamically allowed, and nobody's allowed to say anything about that. When I spoke to my cousins about it, like, when I tried telling them, like, hey, I'm not happy, things are going bad, and can someone help us? They said, oh, I don't complain about my problems to anybody but God, so you should do the same and just pray, And in reality, like, they were also getting abused. They were also suffering. These people are also, going through hell themselves, and instead of coming together to support one another and try to figure out a solution, they just, they accept their own suffering, and then they don't even reach a hand for others who are also suffering. And I couldn't take that, I really didn't like that. And it was around this time, obviously I was also doubting Islam. Based on my studies, I was learning a lot of things that didn't sit right with me, especially concerning women. Like, me being a woman, I felt like, kind of like it was unfair. But like I said this before on Abdullah Sami's channel, like, it wasn't just because I didn't like something about Islam, it wasn't the reason why I left it, The reason I left it eventually when I came to terms that, I don't think this is true at all. Because at first I was just doubting it. I was just thinking, there's some stuff about Islam. It seems misogynistic. It seems kind of racist, it seems kind of like, harmful, but who am I to say it's wrong if I don't have the evidence? At the end, maybe this is the right religion, but there's just stuff that I don't agree with. But eventually, like, I had to study more, and I had to like listen to other perspectives and read up on it, and actually try to understand my own faith, which what really led me to like leave it was knowing that nothing in it actually made any sense. Like, logically, it doesn't make any sense. There's no rational explanation. And even if it did, like, even if, the God of the Quran or the God of Islam was real, I don't believe that's a God that I should be worshiping. Like, I don't believe they deserve to be worshipped. Like, because that type of God, the Abrahamic God or the God of these type of religions, is so like sadistic and so cruel and so like the opposite of everything that the scripture claims that they is. What kind of merciful God would torture his own creation so much, when this is supposed to love you more than like 70 times than your mother? It doesn't make any sense. How can a God allow domestic violence? How can a God allow his creations to suffer like that? For what? Like, he gets a kick out of us suffering. Like, we're gonna be rewarded for suffering. Why wouldn't he just end that?
I had a very similar dilemma, so I completely understand that. So you left Islam. What happened then? Well, I know what's happened then, but tell the audience what happened then. It's not a fun part of the show. We talk about what happens after you leave Islam, but I don't know in how much detail you want to go with it, or if you even want to tell it, because it is quite a lot. Hello? Sophia?
You're muted, Sophia.
I think she's gone to like clear her nose or something.
And it says it's telling me I can't unmute the guest because they what?
They've muted themselves.
Oh, because they chose to mute themselves.
Yeah.
Sophia, so down below the screen that you're looking at that we're all on now should be a little box with just you in it. And there's a microphone icon there you have to click on to unmute yourself.
Oh.
Were you muted that whole time? Hello?
There, you're back.
No, I wasn't muted. I muted it when it got disconnected.
What?
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
I was just diving.
Believe it or not, we've had these problems before, Sophia.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had one, so don't worry too much about it.
Okay.
What I was asking is that what happened after you left Islam?
So, okay. After I left Islam, I realized, all these things that I was told to believe about, women and how we're meant to be subservient, obedient, like that wasn't true. We didn't have to be like that. We didn't have to be, so dependent on men. And it just gave me a different outlook and perspective that I felt like I needed to step out and find my own path and start my own life. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to go to school, like I didn't want to settle for just marriage. Maybe at some point, but even then it's not going to be like the way my family or community wanted it, I wasn't going to just get an arranged marriage and, with someone I didn't know and start my life with not even knowing what kind of person they are and let them abuse me and all that. I wasn't going to stand for that, So even though these other women, they've internalized this misogyny so much and they defend this religion too, that is the reason or like partially the cause of their suffering, and they're so unhappy and it's so heartbreaking because I know so many women who experience it, like my own personal friends who got married and their husbands are abusive and won't let them do anything, and they have children from them. It's like, I don't want that life. I don't want to be stuck in that kind of predicament. So it's better if I take the chance now to leave or start my life than to wait and get married. So I constantly at that point was trying to get an education. I was, kind of not really fighting, but like demanding my right to go to school. And it kind of sounds weird to say that because you expect people to just let you go to school. You expect your parents to encourage you to go to school. In my case, I was fighting just to go to school. you know. I was fighting just to study. And obviously they were against it and they didn't want me to go. And eventually they realized, I mean, not they didn't realize, but eventually they came to terms with letting me do online school. So I did like some college online, and they still weren't okay with me getting a job, and they still were expecting me to get married at some point. But I thought, you know what, one step at a time. Maybe if not now, later, I'll take my time, you know. And I continued pretending to be a Muslim. I continued doing as they told me to do because I was scared. I didn't really know how to approach it at first. But eventually, it came a point where I thought, I'm tired of pretending, and I'm tired of not, you know, getting anywhere because of these restrictions and because of these, you know, limitations. Like, I don't even believe in this religion, so why am I being, you know, bounded by it? Why am I being limited because of it, you know? If you don't believe that women and men should be studying in the same environment, okay, you know, you don't do it then. Don't go to school then. Don't do whatever you want other people not to do. But don't impose it on me when I don't even believe in it, you know? I respect whatever beliefs you have as long as it's not hurting anybody else. But if you're going to impose your beliefs on me and expect me to follow when I don't even believe in it, that's just not right. So I thought, okay, first things first, I'm going to stop praying. That's the first thing I was pretending to do for so long. Let me stop that. And that was the first thing and the only thing I ever really did to like rebel. If that makes any sense. I don't know what you call it rebelling, but you know, in their eyes, that's rebellious. So
Yeah.
I stopped praying, and it went on for a little while, and obviously they were getting annoyed. They noticed, and they started telling me, pray, stop this. You're not supposed to like leave your prayers. Read Gaza at least if you're not gonna read them on time. Like, you know, don't leave your prayers. And I wasn't, and I continued to do that. Continued my defiance. And at one point, you know, my dad lost it. He started beating me, choking me, you know, strangling me. And it's not stuff I'd never seen him do before on my mom, but like I was just surprised that he was doing that to me, you know, like to his own daughter. And I didn't really think, you know, this stuff would actually be that serious. And he was telling me, are you going to pray? Are you going to pray? And I was like, no. And then he said, well, then if you're not, then you're not a Muslim, you're a Murtad, and you know what happens to Murtads. So that was the main turning point in my life. And I realized I wasn't even safe in my own home. Like, restrictions aside, like everything was so horrible, and it was such a horrible life. I was going nowhere, you know. The only thing I saw was marriage. That was my only like option. Nothing else was going anywhere. I was unhappy. I had no friends, wasn't allowed to see anybody. And I still accepted all that if they let me have some freedom. If I would have stayed with them, I would have stayed in their house and just followed the rules if they had let me go to school and work, you know, and not force me to get married. But even that I couldn't do. And then the fact that I couldn't even be myself and not pray and not practice a religion I don't believe in, and I was attacked for that. I had no like respect for my own like self and my own dignity at all. You know, like, is this what your religion really teaches? It really give me an insight on like, this is my situation. And I know like what he did was Islamically probably not right either. Like, obviously you're not supposed to take the matter in your own hand. It's supposed to be done in a jury or whatever. But at the end of the day, what if my father was a qazi? What if he was the judge? You know, at the end of the day, people's lives are still at threat. They're still at risk. Then like people can get killed over this stuff. Whether it happens in a few days or right there in that instant, it happens, and people's lives are threatened.
Like, it was almost like in the heat of the moment for your dad, wasn't it? Like he just made a decision there.
Yeah. But
It's really terrifying.
it just made me really realize, like, you know, if this could happen to me, and I live in America, you know, and this happened to me here in America, even though I grew up, my upbringing and my lifestyle was nothing like an American, you know, or a Pakistani living in America, but still I was living in America and this happened. So imagine what's happening in other places and what might be happening in other parts of America. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and these communities are so tight-knit and so close to each other, and they hide everything. They will never expose anybody's, you know, the wrongdoings. Like, there's so much domestic violence in our communities, in these in the Muslim community. There's so much, and nobody is allowed to talk about it. Nobody's allowed to.
If the person in our community does dare to question it or report it, they're shunned immediately because
Exactly.
it's like they told on one of their own sort of thing.
Yeah, they dishonored their own family member. I was told
Mm.
the same thing. Like I couldn't even report it. Like where was I meant to go? If I couldn't report it to the legal authorities, what about my own community? They weren't doing anything either. They were just sitting back and telling me to pray for things to change, as if that was the only answer, you know? So I just felt frustrated. I was like, I'm not safe here anymore. After that incident, obviously, I started pretending again. I pretended to be Muslim. I prayed, I did everything I could to keep up that image so that he wouldn't hurt me again. But only I know how terrifying it was, how traumatizing that experience was for me to live in this under the same roof with a man who nearly took my life, who's trying to take my life. I didn't feel safe, and I felt I needed to be somewhere else, and I didn't know where to go, who to ask for help, or what to do. I was so confused, and that was like when that's when I opened my Twitter account. That was the only time I felt like I finally had an outlet. I could finally talk to people who understood me, and I could listen to their stories and be like, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. And, it was really empowering to have that outlet because it finally made me feel like, I wasn't alone. And whatever I was going through, I was being heard. And, my voice was being taken seriously. Nobody was trying to shun me and silence me and make me not talk about what I was going through. And I was actually getting opinions on what I should do. So around this time, I was also trying to get into exMNA, but it was difficult because of the screening process. And because I lived with my family, what they do is they usually do these video calls to screen the person to make sure they're genuine. But for me, it was so difficult to even do that, living with my family, video calling somebody. I had to do it so secretly and at a certain time. So it was really hard for me to get into exMNA right away. So I wasn't in there. But I still wanted to get out. I still wanted to leave right away. I was desperate. So I got some help from an individual I met online. He, whatever. They helped me, and they got me out. I left in the middle of the night. They gave me instructions on what to do, and I did all those things. And bear in mind, I couldn't call the police from inside the house because last time I had called any kind of authorities, I called an ambulance for my mom. I was also shunned for that, they turned them away, and then they turned on me saying, how dare you do that? How could you, turn your father like that? Don't you think he could have gotten arrested? Blah, blah, blah. And my mother was hurt. I was trying to get her help, but they didn't care about that. They cared more about their image than anything else. So I knew that I couldn't call the police while I was inside. I knew the only way I could do this is if I'm outside the house. But like I said, I barely ever left the house. I was always stuck. I was always monitored. I was always trapped. Nobody was letting me leave. So the only way I had to leave was in the middle of the night in a small period of time between Fajr and midnight, because everyone would be up, in the middle of the night. So I'm like,
I wanna comment on can you imagine how terrifying that is? That you're a girl who's not seen the outside world very much. You've been in your home for I don't even know how many years since you left school. You were homeschooled, and you could leave. What did you say? 4 times a year. Can you imagine how terrifying that is for a young girl who's not seen the outside world to have to leave her home in the middle of the night, and also have it in her head that she's never going back? That's such a brave step that you took. That's a big thing that you did.
It was so terrifying.
But the honest truth of it is that so many people won't do that. It's too scary to do that.
Exactly. So I don't even blame them. I don't. The thing I did was it's not everyone's built for it. I think it takes a whole lot out of you to do that. And for me, not only not being able to see the world, I hadn't seen the world for so long. I didn't even know how to take a bus. I didn't know my routes or anything. I couldn't even see properly, given my visual impairment, And that was something I was diagnosed when I was in my late teens. So it was something that came up later. So now I don't have just one obstacle. I have all these obstacles lining up against me. So that's why I felt like I needed to get help from somebody than do it all on my own. I don't think I would have been able to do it on my own, because I tried. I called the resources in my area. I tried asking them, what should I do? The women's center, and they denied me help. they said that your case is not domestic violence because, you know, it's parental abuse, it's not partner abuse. So they denied me help. And really at that point, where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do? I didn't have any friends, and the friends I had were all other Muslim girls, you know, who were also staying with their family. They couldn't help me. So I just had to take a leap of faith and trust this person, because I was losing my mind when I was stuck there. Like, my only options that I could even see was getting married and take that risk, or run away, or, you know, I was even considering taking my own life. Like, that's how bad things were. I was so fed up and stuck. So I thought, you know what, my only other option is really, you know, getting married and risking everything then, or death. So I'd rather take this leap of faith. And I trusted this person. And I don't really know, I don't have a lot to say about them. I don't really want to talk about them like in public much, but they were kind of like, they had their own like incentive, I guess, behind what they did. So even though they did help me, I felt like I was indebted to them. I felt like I owed them, and they did expect me to pay them back in some way or shape or form. So given that, like, I left that situation too. I was there for a few months, but I left, and I was informed that it was a case of human trafficking. So when that happened, I wanted to go back. I didn't want to stay in that area anymore because I was in an unfamiliar location. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. And I'd rather be somewhere that at least was somewhat familiar, even though I barely knew that either. So I asked to go back. I went back, and at that point, I was homeless. I didn't have anyone to go to again. And this was kind of like, I guess, what happened to me that month was probably what would have happened to me if I had just left straight from home and not, like, you know, taking that person's help. I probably would have just ended up homeless like that, you know. But at that point, I was in exMNA. So I was able to reach out to exMNA, you know, tell them about my situation. I posted it on the forum, and so many people came to my aid. Like, they told me to set up a GoFundMe. They told me, you know, there's so-and-so person located in this area. You can stay with them for a bit until you can go somewhere else, you know, and they helped me a lot, you know. They really helped me get on my feet. And eventually, I was able to get access to a shelter that actually specializes in taking women who are from those type of backgrounds, like domestic violence, trafficking, anything like that. So I got into that shelter, and I stayed there for a couple months. During that time, and that's when COVID hit, it was really bad. I'm so grateful that I got into a shelter at that time. And so I was just taking my time to really get back out there, looking for jobs, trying to get myself to. I got a therapist. My therapist was amazing. Sadly, she had to resign recently, but she was very wonderful, and she really helped a lot in my healing. And yeah, I really got a lot of help from like certain resources. And from there on, like, they helped me get my place that I'm at now. I have they helped me get my jobs, like, you know, helped me with my resume, everything I needed to know just how to like deal with the real world, you know. So I learned a lot, and I think from then on, things have just been going better. The only setback I think that's been going on lately is the fact that certain family members are kind of like stalking me, kind of trying to like get a hold of me. I don't know. Like, I've gotten messages, and like even my phone number people have been trying to call. Like, it's crazy, but they've just been really like, you know, getting to me. So, and I don't really want to have anything to do with that, you know, because back then when I needed that help, when I needed that support, who was there? Nobody. So what do you want from me now? You know, what do you guys want? Nothing. So like, leave.
In my experience, the stalking may stop eventually. The fixation on you will never go away. Like, my family to this day, and I left in 2018. To this day, they're extremely fixated on me. They watch all of my content. They're seeing every Instagram post. You know, it's almost like this reaction to, like, it's a window into a world where you don't need them. And they are bitter about that because you know, I wouldn't say that you're thriving, but you're surviving without them.
Yeah, I'm not under their control anymore.
It makes them uncomfortable because maybe that was an option for them, but they've like dug their heels in, and they've decided that, you know, It doesn't matter how bad things are, they're going to stick around. And it's just, I think part of it's jealousy and part of it is just bitterness, because now they've invested so much time into what is a terrible system. So if I'm going to share anything with you, is that you need to be able to grow with it. Don't bother too much about people who are just going to say shit to you and then fixate on you, but not, acknowledge you at the same time, because you've come.
And
Sorry, go on.
But like, for me, I think it's because like, it doesn't bother me what they do to me. It does scare me to some extent, but like I try not to pay attention. But what it does bother me is the fact that, they're harassing like my actual family members, like my siblings and my, like leave them alone, like leave us alone, like what, So that just bothers me because I care a lot about them, and I don't want anybody to mess with them just because of me, like my actions are mine. They had nothing to do with it. They, they're their own person. Leave them alone. Okay, you have a problem with me? Well, I don't want anything to do with you, so just leave me alone too. I'm living my life. I haven't bothered anybody. I haven't, disturbed anything. So just let it be. Let it go. I'm not obsessing over them. So why are they obsessing over me? I don't get it, but it is what it is. But that's the only thing really. Right now, everything else is really good, and I'm really glad.
Yeah, that's good to know. But something that I noticed about myself after leaving like my family and stuff behind is that I never realized how confrontational I am when there isn't like this religion holding me back, telling me I can't be confrontational, because there have been, very similar to you, there have been instances where family members have lashed out at other family members for helping me. And I've always been extremely confrontational about that. Like I did the bad, so come for me. Why are you attacking somebody who has nothing to do with me as far as they're concerned? I don't, and it's just like I feel so. I don't know if it's the same for you, but I feel so guilty that they're now taking the blame or taking the fall for it, because it's got nothing to do with them. I was the one who left.
Exactly.
I'm out of it. If you want to throw your darts at me, make a YouTube channel and sit here and rant about me. I don't care. But flash out at other people who have aided me or have helped me in some way, it really, really does it's just like just another way for them to get to you. And for me, what I've always done is that I've always either put out a message or have sent like a gift basket to people who've helped me, being told off by my family periodically for helping me.
And like my siblings, like the ones who support me, like why are you attacking them? They are very religious. They still practice their faith. They pray. My sister still wears hijab. Like they do their own thing, and I have nothing against that. My thing is not like I'm not trying to convert people. I'm not trying to, spread atheism and make people leave Islam. That's not my goal at all. I just want people to understand that things like my situation, things like what other people go through, it's a thing. It's a reality. And I wanted to like acknowledge that. I don't want them to just dismiss it and say, oh, well, that has nothing to do with Islam. That's just a cultural thing. That's just a family issue. No, your religion directly enabled domestic violence in my household. And that was a problem for me. Don't say it's just this or just that. Acknowledge it. And my family, my sister, everybody just does their own thing. And I don't say anything to them. And they don't say anything to me. We don't discuss religion. And they just want me to be in their life, as I do them. That's all that matters, family, like blood is thicker than water. Family should never put these things between them, That's just not how it should be. And I don't know, I just don't understand what they don't get about that. Like just because they care about me, that means that they're the reason I left Islam and now like they should be punished. No, they're not. They're innocent. Leave them alone. But I mean, what can I say? I'm pretty sure they're gonna watch this, so they're gonna hear everything I'm saying. So I hope this gets to them and they understand and just they back off.
I mean,
But,
I don't know
yeah.
how sensitive I'm allowed to be with your family, but fuck those guys. Like, fuck those guys. You have come out on your own. Like, you've shown them that you are capable of being an independent woman when you had absolutely no resources to do that. And
Mhm.
it's like, maybe you're not like Kim K or something, but you're doing it. You know, you're doing it all on your own.
Yeah.
That you should absolutely have acknowledgement for. Maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't get praised for them. Whatever. But
Mhm.
you should at least get that acknowledgement. Like, you're doing your own thing. You are on your
Yeah.
own, and you are standing by your principles. You know, you made a decision and you're sticking to it, and that is. I just have so much respect for that.
Yeah.
I like forgot what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, how has your life changed since leaving home? But I mean, you more or less explained that. Would you say that it's like, what would you say is the biggest challenge having left?
The biggest challenge is probably finding support,
Mm.
finding people that would understand.
You've cut out, or maybe I've cut out. Someone's cut out.
No, it was Sophia cut out again.
Okay.
But last time it happened, okay, and then now she's back. It looks like it changed to mute. So
Mm.
give her a minute. That's what happened last time. It went to mute, and then she was able to come back. But I've been backstage fascinated. I mean, and her story has a lot of similarities to yours, Faye.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what I get along with, like two different dimensions, same person. But she's such an admirable person. Like, I love her. She's just the
yeah.
best. I don't even know if she's listening right now, and I don't really care. She's had such a hard time over the last couple of years. And while there have definitely been slumps, she's always been so proactive in making her life better. And there's nothing anyone can do but respect that. And it upsets me that people don't respect that.
Well, right, and it's what strikes me is that um, there's so many parents that would be so proud of their offspring who went out and made their own way in the world, like she has done. But now here her family, derides her for having done that. And I think you hit the nail on the head a little while ago when you said there's like some jealousy there, that because in that Muslim mindset, like they treat women a certain way because in their mind, and I'm talking about Muslim men's mind, the women need them. They can't, you can't survive without me, and you need to do everything that I want you to do because that's the way the religion is. And that's just not the case. I mean, and here's this young woman who, for her own safety and for her own peace of mind, she went out there and made her own way in the world. And I respect that so much. I mean,
And she's a baby as well. She's like early 20s. She's a baby. And she's doing that, like she's made it on her own. And I'm just so, so proud of that. I don't know what's happened with her though, so let's try and get her back.
oh, I think she's back.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
I popped back into the room and we were talking glowingly about you while you were gone. I mean,
Okay.
I have so much
Should
respect.
I pick
for
up where I
you.
left off?
Yep, absolutely.
Sure. Go for it. What were you talking about?
Just talking about how, like, what's the biggest challenge since leaving, and I was just saying, finding community is because, like, my whole life I've been surrounded by the same type of people. Wasn't really allowed to have non-Muslim friends or people outside my culture, just because they thought of them as negative influences. So coming out of that and like learning to befriend people from different backgrounds, different religions, different whatever, it was different, And obviously, I never could relate to such people. I could never really feel like I was anyone really understood me, because they had a whole different situation, and everyone's situation is different. But I just feel like I didn't belong anywhere. Like I didn't belong in nor my former culture and community, like because I wasn't Muslim anymore. But I also didn't belong here because it's a whole different dynamic. So for me, like the ex-Muslim community has been a huge support getting through all of this. And now I've been able to like branch out and actually make relationships and friendships in my own community. Like I've made a few like really good solid ones, and I think it's getting a little bit easier now, even though it's still like I don't trust people right away, but like little by little it's coming together. But the ex-Muslim community like initially was the only community I had when I first left, and they really helped me, bond and feel like I wasn't alone. And right now I know it's super hard with everything that's going on in the ex-Muslim community, that you feel like you can't even trust each other. So I really hope that, for future ex-Muslims that's not the case, and we can find like a support network for them, that they don't feel alone, or they don't feel like, they'll be scared.
I do think that in some sense that the reason for the split in the XP is that we've kind of lost sight of why it exists to begin with. And, I've definitely fed into that. That's partly my fault as well. But I am trying to take responsibility for that and take accountability for that and just sit down and talk about it. And I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I've discussed it on my channel, and I am going to continue discussing it, despite just how much it's not welcome. But if I can make a suggestion to you, one of the best things that I've done for myself is to make friends with Muslim women, and I've made friends with quite a few Muslim women where we'll just talk about just normal things that Muslim women go through, like how our parents prefer our brothers over us, how men and women are treated differently, how quirky Muslim men are, or certain types of men are in the ways they treat women. It's been really, really heartwarming to be able to sit down with people who go through the very same things that I and maybe yourself have gone through, and just talk about it openly and freely. And no word of a lie, when we are sitting there and we're sharing stories about things that have happened to us, all of the other men who are not from this background, silent, just silence, like they cannot believe the things that we're talking about. And sometimes there are just things that people who are outside of this experience just won't understand.
And I think like a lot of Muslim women, like because I was a Muslim woman when I was still going through like the abuse and stuff, and I think for them like it's like similarly hard to find other Muslim women who would help them, or at least try to understand what they're going through, as it is to talk to an ex-Muslim woman, because I think like in my situation, like I spoke to other Muslim women in my community, and they were all just saying, deal with it yourself, pray for it, whatever, and they weren't really helpful. And I think there's probably some other like Muslim girls who are suffering and they don't know who to talk to, because that's the kind of reaction they get from their own communities. So for us, like these,
I think also being outside of it, it's really, really important for them to understand our perspective. I say them like they're like this untouchable thing, but like for example, I have a Muslim friend who lives in not the best situation, and I've been telling her for a long time that she deserves better. Like she doesn't deserve to be treated how she's treated by almost everyone in her life. And I think that when we're in that situation, the alternatives are scary because we don't know what they are. So like the concept of leaving the house, or the concept of like, running away with somebody, or whatever the stereotype is now. It's a scary thing because it's like this unreachable goal. And just being that person who's left that environment, like despite whether or not we've left Islam, we've left that environment, is almost like, well, she's done it. She's clearly not, this is me I'm talking about, she's clearly not the brightest tool in the shed, and she's done it, so obviously I can do it. Like maybe
she did it.
Yeah, she did it, so why can't I do it, like I'm resourceful.
Exactly.
my money. I can get a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it gives, I think it allows people to be able to see a side that's welcome for them. You know, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
hopeful image where it's like
Yeah.
she went through the same things I did, and yet she's okay because she
Mm-hmm.
left. Stopped
Yeah.
being around that. So maybe
Yeah.
it's a thing that I can do. And I think that you being public about everything that's happened to you, and you sharing your story, and you reminding people essentially that there is a way out
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah, and I think I do get like messages like that from women who are both like, Muslim or ex-Muslim, who usually ask me this question. And my goal, like I said, was never to convert. So whenever I talk to these people, I don't talk about religion. I just talk about our shared struggles, of what we both went through and how we can get out of it. If they ask me about certain things like, oh, what did you doubt about this or that, then maybe I might go into that. But I'm never gonna try to persuade someone that, hey, religion is bad and you should leave it. That's up to them to decide. I can give my 2 cents of what I think, but that's it. So whenever I talk to people of different religions, like I never, tell them like, oh,
I
I
mean,
think
the
that's bullshit.
religion is very much like it. I've always seen religion as a very personal thing, so it's not something that I talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to like co-workers and friends. Like, who wants to talk about religion, honestly?
Yeah.
I feel like the only people that I talk about religion to is like people on Twitter and other
Mm-hmm.
ex-Muslims of mine, which like, why do we keep talking about religion? It's not important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is that the added bonus to having people who are friends who understand that experience is that we make a lot of sick jokes, and it really unnerves everyone else in the room, but we're laughing, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes. We could understand that kind of humor because it's our experience.
Yeah,
For
it's
others,
like
it probably seems dark though.
it's the blackest humor you will ever find because it's just so grim, but at the same time, it's like it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's really true. And I remember having this, like it was over a lunch break or something, but I was having this 1 hour conversation about all the different da'is, and I was explaining to these women that I've met these people, and they're like, "No, you're joking. Like, what were they like?" And I would explain all the different stories, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just like I can't talk about that with anyone else. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
something that we share, and it's like our thing. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just I don't know, it's really fun. And also my
Mm-hmm.
Arabic's gotten better since befriending these people because they speak
Yeah.
a lot of Arabic and I'm hearing it and responding and things like that. So
Yeah, what's really funny is that I didn't even grow up speaking Arabic, but like I learned it when I was in my Islamic studies and stuff, and just reading a lot about it and listening to. I used to listen to so many lectures back when I was Muslim, when I was religious. I used to listen to so many like these Muslim on merciful servant and whatnot. They used a lot of these Arabic words, and it just became like a central, ingrained in my own language to some extent. So
part of
I've
your
been trying to like unlearn that because I'm like, I'm not Arab, I sound like a wannabe, but I'm not Arab.
you
So
know
I don't
what?
want to sound like something I'm not.
Ever since making these friendships, all of my I'm gonna call them Arabicisms, like your when you say sah, like do you understand sah? You know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That come back my, like in subhanallah, somebody does something stupid, like
Uh-huh.
it's somebody like trips over something they couldn't have tripped over, like it's not possible, it's like you're not humanly capable
Yeah.
of being there, but they
Yeah.
like subhanallah, like what the fuck is happening? Like come back, and
Mhm.
even though like it doesn't mean anything because I don't care about the religion part, it makes my friends laugh, and it
Yeah.
makes
Or
me.
like wallahi, they say stuff.
Yeah, I say wallahi all the time now. Like it's
Yeah.
like it's just like I'm telling a story about something, and in the middle I'll just drop a wallahi to make it sound more funny.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly like, I know we've seen a lot of people backsliding in this community as of late, and I don't want anybody to worry, but it's just I wish that there was more of that sort of lax treatment of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
It, the thing is, right, with you and me, and this is just like the second part of the show where we just talk.
Mm-hmm.
With you and me, like Islam was such a big part of our life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
forget big part, it was our life. Like Islam was our life. And
Yeah.
I think like it's not just an uphill battle. It's a battle we've already lost to completely erase that, 20, 25 years of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that is always going to be a part of me. It's something that has made me who I am. And
Yeah.
instead of rejecting it, I don't see a problem with keeping the parts that are good or parts that are funny.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things in the culture where it's like, for me, like I bond over food. And
Yeah.
that's very, I feel like that's very like Asian / like African Islamic thing where you make a bunch of food. Well, honestly, because food is like the one thing we're allowed to enjoy. But also,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's something that I'll never let go. Like food is always something that I'm going to bond over.
Exactly.
And the wallahis and the subhanallahs and the ma'as salamas, like all of that. It's
Yeah.
I don't want to let it go. It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the part that you meant about food, like I personally, like I went kind of vegetarian after leaving Islam, but I've seen like the meats around here, and I kind of noticed that halal meat is like it's more like homegrown. It feels like more natural, and like the stuff you find in the markets is like so big, and like it just looks like it's full of chemicals. Like it doesn't look like it's natural. So if I were to still eat meat, I would probably still stick to like halal, just because I feel like it's more natural, like healthier probably.
And
But
also
yeah.
the age-old question: do you still wash yourself in the toilet? As if it's anyone's business. But,
Yes, of course I do.
so gross not to.
Yes, it's like I can't get myself not to. I'm always paranoid now. Like I had that paranoia when I was religious about like, oh, my wuzu is gonna get broken or something, and I still have that. Like I gotta be fuck. I can't be believed. The unclean and clean, right?
Yeah, it's just
So
I don't know. It's just funny, like looking back. I feel like there was a point in my sort of deconversion where I was like, I want nothing to do with it. I just want to ignore the fact that it was part of it. It's such a
yes.
of my life. But if I'm
That's exactly what I did too. That's part of the reason why it was so depressing, because I'm like, I can't just erase a whole part of my life. Like it meant so much to me.
It's a self-conflict where it's like, am I just bad, like a shit person? Like how did I become so ingrained in this thing that was so awful for everyone involved in it? And it's almost like this self-hatred that you have for yourself until you realize it's just a part of life. It's something that you grew up with, you grew out of, and now you're better for it,
Yeah.
And maybe
I don't know if this might sound kind of offensive where we're watching, but I kind of see religion as like a drug, kind of. And people who are like really into it are like hardcore addicts probably. And so an example of like someone who's leaving a drug, like something they were so addicted to for so long, it's extremely difficult. But later on they can learn that they can live with their past of what they had and still have a normal life, and they can still move on from it. And that's kind of how Islam was for us. Is like it was something we're so passionate about. And now that we're out of it, at first we're like, we don't want to have anything to do with it. But now we're like, let's joke about it. It makes us, humor is like a coping mechanism too. It helps with like, lessening your trauma and making you feel better about it. So that's a wonderful way of like coping.
I completely agree. And like you saying that made me think, like, is our anxiety, like, is that just the withdrawal symptom?
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna die alone sort of thing. Like it's just a withdrawal symptom.
You know what I hate? I hate when people think that, like people when you leave Islam you become like depressed, and like it's like that's because all that nude and all that positive energy is gone from your life and that's why you're depressed. But it's like such a misconception, because the reason why we become depressed or like anxious or whatever or have PTSD is because of our experience with the religion. Just like a drug, the drug, it destroys your whole body. And once you leave it, it's not because, oh, now that you're off that drug, you're going to have all these withdrawal symptoms and like that's your fault. No, because that's what happens when you're leaving something and it's hard at first, but then you learn to like, you know, heal. And that's exactly what Islam
but
is. Like you leave it and
but also think like you do these drugs, your whole family does these drugs, and because you've decided you no longer want to take the drug and you're struggling with that, your whole family is just like, get out. Like, we don't want anything to do with you. We're gonna chat shit about you until they die. It's that added layer. Sorry, go on.
And you're just trying to do what's best for you. Like, you're not doing anything wrong, but you're made to feel like what you did was wrong because everybody else is in it and you're the only one who dared to go against it, you know? Yeah.
Like, see, like when I talk to you, like everything just makes sense because I feel like I'm not like idealizing your life. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but like no one gets it. Like the other day, one of my this is again, it's just become a conversation, but like one of my coworkers, she was like, "Oh, have you heard of this person?" She was telling me that this happened to you. Is it true? And I was like, "Yeah, my dad almost killed me." And she like looked at me like how can you just say that? Like, how can you just say it? Like,
you say it so casually, like
it's just something that's happened to me. You know, it's something that it.
But it hasn't broken you. You know, you're still a functional person. You still learn to heal. Yeah. So even though these tragic things in our life are like something that happened to us, it's part of our life. It doesn't mean we're damaged. It doesn't mean we can't, you know, bounce back and still live our life. It's just something that has happened. It does shape us. It did affect us, but it doesn't define us, you know?
Yeah. And I think that, you know, you're definitely a symbol of growth. And I honestly, I am always going to be in your corner rooting for you no matter what happens. If we fall out, if we don't fall out, it just feels like everyone's falling out with me. But I'm always going to be in your corner. And I'm so proud of how far you've come. And I'm sure you'll go on to do great things.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Does John want to jump back in? I don't know if John has any questions. Usually he has a lot of questions.
I mean, I really don't have any questions. I mean, a few comments. Because, I mean, Sophia was so thorough with her story. And while you slipped away there for a moment early on, me and Faye were talking for a minute. And she had mentioned that you would be marvelous, like doing a podcast, and that maybe she might want to get together with you. And because I think it's important, you know, and especially now that I hear your story and you're here in America and this was happening to you in America, which is just, you know, we're not talking about like Pakistan or something like that. It was happening to you right here. And, you know, I said, you know, at the beginning of the podcast, when we were talking about the stories off of Twitter that, you know, people here don't think it could happen here. Well, then here now I've heard your story. It is happening here. Okay. I mean, and your story would be so inspirational because having listened to you and having talked to Faye at length for the time I've known her, that I'm sitting here right now thinking about the probably millions of women and girls across the world that are maybe in similar situations that you and Faye were in right now that want to get out of it and don't know how to take the first step to get out of it. And, you know, hearing your story would be an inspiration to them. You know, and I forget, there was something else I wanted to comment on, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. Well, one thing I did want to say is, Faye had mentioned backsliders, as she referred to them as of late. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I mean, I just don't understand how you are in a religion and then you decide this is bad for me and you get out of that religion and then you go back to it. I don't understand how people do that. And there was a couple
of backsliders I do want to point out are men, and Islam heavily favors men, so it doesn't it doesn't make sense, but it kind of also does. Like, if you are predisposed to be quite misogynistic, it makes sense that you would go back to a religion that makes women less free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One question I did want to ask you though, is this the happiest time of your life right now?
I think so. I actually really think so, and that's saying a lot. Like I've living with my family my whole life, and I love them to death. Don't get me wrong, but the kind of experience I had there, it wasn't right, and I feel like I'm finally free, and I finally have so much to do with my life now. I can actually make plans. I can actually, figure things out and like see where I can go, and it's exciting. I feel like the sky's the limit, and I never had that before. I never even thought I could like. I thought I was gonna get married and that was it. I was gonna have kids, stay at home, like nothing. My life would be nothing. But now I see it. I see that there's so much potential out there. So I'm so happy and I'm really excited for what the future brings.
I mean, I'm happy right now. Just haven't heard your story. I mean, you're a marvelous human being, and like I said to Faye when you slipped away there for a moment again, I see a lot of similarities in your story and Faye's story.
Mm-hmm.
She had a similar situation with her father where she had to fear for her safety from her own father. And that just boggles my mind that
Mm-hmm.
that type of things happen. But
I was like, also, don't let something I do want to tell you is that don't ever minimize your struggles, because your struggles have been massive. When I told my
Mm-hmm.
therapist about what I went through with my dad, it broke her. I broke my therapist. Like these things do not happen normally, and it
Yeah.
should never be minimized. What you've been through and how much you've overcome is
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's actually something I struggle with sometimes is that I see other people who haven't, been in the same shoes as I have, and I have a tendency to compare myself, thinking, well, they're so far, they're already doing this, and like I'm 20, I'm this age, and I'm still not fully there yet, so I feel like I'm behind. But like you said, like I have to understand that my situation is different, and I had to go through a lot more to be where I am. So I do feel like nowadays I do feel like I'm more proud of myself and not like feeling so ashamed and guilty or feeling like I'm behind and not enough. So yeah.
you have every right to feel proud of yourself. I mean, just like I've told Faye many times, you're a strong woman, and what you have achieved is fantastic. She talked about she broke broke her therapist. I mean, I'm holding back tears right now. I mean, tears of joy for how strong you are, and tears of sadness for what you had to go through. And
Mm-hmm.
I love all of our guests, and it's seemingly every week I love the guest I'm with. So, but yeah, you were great. You tell your story wonderfully. Faye didn't have to prompt you with many questions, and you need to share your story.
That's how it goes. So we've had so many interviews, me and Sophia. So it's like at this point, it's just like a regular conversation for us.
Yeah, it just feels like I was just catching up with you. I didn't feel like I was having an interview.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so we are going to get out of here. Now you don't have a YouTube channel, do you, Sophia?
No, I don't.
You got to get with Faye. You got to have the Faye Sophia
Maybe
podcast.
a podcast or something. It's up to you. It depends what you're comfortable with. Like I have your Discord and stuff, but I would love to start a podcast with you because I think that it could be cool to talk about like our lives now and not necessarily sit and compare, but what I enjoy the most now is not so much talking about religion, but it's more like having all of these experiences that I just didn't get to have as a kid.
Yeah.
Like climbing a tree for the first time. I did that a few months ago, believe it or not. And it was exhilarating and I want to do it again. But it's a little bit unacceptable at my age to just climb a tree. So it's just like the little things that I feel like normal people won't understand. I think it could be quite eye-opening to an exMuslim and Muslim audience who maybe don't get to do or have the same experience that we do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a very good point too, because there are Muslim women all over the world that are in horrible situations, and it wouldn't even cross their mind to leave because they've been so indoctrinated into it. They might hate the life they're living right now, and it wouldn't even cross their mind that they could get out of it. They've just resolved themselves to the fact that that's their life, and they've got to get used to it. And I'd really love to get the word out to all of those human beings. And so, Faye, do you have anything coming up on your channel you want to let folks know about?
Well, right now on my channel, I'm just like getting back into the groove of it. I've had a little bit of a hiatus, but I am more or less back. I've been releasing, last 2 weeks I've released a video for each week. I do want to get back to at least 2 scheduled videos a week, but we'll see. I am currently working on a comic, and I am quite proud of the few pages that I've got down, and I'm hoping to continue that. I have like a little storyboard. You know, pay attention to that. I've also started a Teespring where you can get like sketches that I've done and stuff like that. And I really want to push it because I'm honestly quite proud of my artwork. I didn't think I could get back to the level that I was once upon a time. And I feel like I've achieved that. It's completely, like, if you look at my old artwork, it's completely different style to what I had going on back then. But I am very proud of it, and I would like to promote it.
I love your art. You've seen I've been switching up my avatars with her art for the last several weeks. And then I've got it on my profile page that if you like my avatar, reach out to at Rotten Fire. But and one thing we should do is, since you are, taking a concerted effort to lack of a better word, market your artwork, we got to get that link in all of these videos. I always put the guest info in there, but often forget to put our own in there. So, all right, and what we got coming up on the Apostate Alliance, November 1st, our guest will be Nick Suter. He's an ex-Christian. The 8th, we will be talking to ex-Muslim Harris Sultan. That will be a pre-recorded interview as well. And on the 15th of November, I believe Faye knows her, we're going to have Sassy Heathen on.
Oh, I love Sassy Heathen.
Yeah, she's awesome. She, a few weeks back, or a month, maybe as much as a month and a half or 2 months ago, she tweeted something out and it went viral, and she got like 8,000 Twitter followers in one day. It was crazy. But so thank you so much for being here, Sophia. It was marvelous hearing your story. Please don't be afraid to share that story every chance you get. And Faye, I'm so glad you're back. I felt adrift while you were gone there. But again, we're here every Sunday at 11 a.m. And we'd really love it if you'd come by. We'd really love it if you shared these podcasts, because we want to get these out to everybody. And, don't just share it with people in our community. Drop the playlist off to a Muslim, let them watch it. Maybe they need to listen to what our guests say. Maybe they need to hear from Faye every week. But again,
I think I've managed to touch quite a few hearts and other stuff with the Muslim community. I have a reputation for being a little bit out there, but for the most part, I think they quite enjoy me. So I'm quite happy with the reputation that I have there, and that people feel comfortable reaching out to me. And it's always great to see the trolls in the live chat, which this isn't a live show right now, but normally it's a live show, and I'm always happy to see our regulars, be they Christian evangelicals or just Muslim people.
Well, and our Christian evangelicals that come to the cast. I mean, there's there's even some Christians that are friends of the channel that, you know, come by, and they're not trolls or anything. But I'm still surprised to this day, now 24 episodes in, that none of the vitriolic Muslims that go after Twitter or go after Faye and other ex-Muslims on Twitter have never shown up here to troll. I mean,
well,
what's that?
you actively tag them as well. Maybe we should have an open.
That's right. Yeah, a few weeks into it, I actively just like tagged like 50 Muslims on Twitter, and they never even came over.
I think we should have an open room for Muslims to come on. I think that could be fun. Might not be the right word for it, but it would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to hear, because oftentimes I've run into a lot of different people that are kind of vitriolic on Twitter, but then you get them in a conversation and they're a little more reasonable than they would be if they were just behind their keypad typing things. But I haven't had that experience with Muslims, you know, because I haven't talked to a lot of Muslims at all in a live stream. I'd like to see how they react. I mean, I've seen how they react towards you and some of the videos they do where they're just completely crazy. But yeah, I'd like to see how they react. All right, so we're going to get out of here. And again, Sundays, 11 a.m. time. We're getting feedback. And the Apostate Alliance is where you can feel free to not believe. Have a good day, everybody.